So now I would call Duncan Webb, the Member of Parliament for Christchurch Central, to the table. Duncan, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Kia ora, Deputy Mayor. Ina mana, ina rau, ina iwi. Ina rā rangatira mā. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. And thank you very much for indulging me. I've been a difficult submitter, last minute change of plans, and thank you for granting me a little extra time. And I just want to mark the gravity of the work that you councillors, this council is doing. It's an extremely difficult task. But I also want to express real disappointment that the currently preferred option sees this city at this time standing still. The idea that in the current climate, what is essentially a inflation-adjusted rates levy will have huge impact on this city. And this is at a time when we know all of our advice tells us that we're in an economic situation that we haven't seen for 160 years. The government has set aside and spent a large part of $50 billion to support employment and to support our people. And that the basis of the fundamental of my submission is that the city needs to get in that waka and paddle in time, because if we go down the path which is the preferred proposal, we will see a huge economic disruption for Christchurch that we will not recover from for decades to come. The $164, I think, million cut in your capital program is a real dagger to the heart of Christchurch. And it's not enough to say that we'll do it later. That is a program that will never be caught up. And it's not just about the spending of money. Every $1 million spent has a compounding effect on jobs. And we can't expect our businesses to get up and running if this council is going to cost this city thousands of jobs. Not just the builders and the contractors who do that construction work, but the professional services who feed off that, and the cafes and service industries that feed off those. So that is a massive effective massive jobs cut. And look, I want to applaud the council for its increase in the Strengthening Communities Fund. That's exactly the right strategy. But given what's going on with community funding right now, that needs to be much greater. We need to be. We know that there's going to be fallout from the economic effects of COVID. This council is in a position that no other organisation in Christchurch is to support the social services and the communities out there. And there are some fantastic projects that are planned. I know the Stanmore Village project is one in a much needed community. They're the kind of projects that money should be spent on vulnerable communities so that we can support them through this. And I can see already there's a couple of people who want to answer questions, and I'll just make a couple more points and I'll finish before my time. The water levy, I agree that discipline and usage is a good thing, but an allowance which is based on the value of the property owned is a regressive approach. That framework is not fit for purpose and it should not be used at the present time. I absolutely accept that any rate increase causes hardship for some, but not all. So let's not give everyone a free ride at this time of crisis. Let's make sure our assistance is targeted to those who need it. So, and absolutely I understand that business is critical, and the council is in a position to lead that. And it's got a great economic development unit in Christchurch NZ. That's where we should be looking to make sure that at this time when other businesses are struggling, the city can step up, fill the gap and make sure Christchurch is resilient and prepared for the recovery that comes. I've got a submission that I'll provide later which has a lot more detail in it, but really this city is in a position to borrow money and to spend money in a way that no other organisation at a local level is. That's what we should be doing now, not a 1980s style austerity program which will damage families, people, jobs and the cities for years to come. Kia ora.
So, Duncan, you're suggesting some disappointment at our proposed 3.5% rates increase. In terms of the options in the consultation document, or
Yes.
your own views, what rates increase would you have us pursue?
My submission does point that out, and I should have said option 3, which is the originally planned increase, I understand. But I would supplement that with saying if we went down that road with the adjustments to the borrowing program, increased spending would be possible, and that would be my preferred approach.
Thank you. Now, I've got some people indicating questions. I've got Sam, Sarah, Leanne and Mike. Sam.
Great. Hey, thank you, Duncan, for coming. I read your submission and was impressed with your passion. In terms of the capital program, so obviously you'll be aware that in the past the challenge has been we can't deliver it. So this is actually refining it. My view would be it should be less, but this is refining it to a point where it's achievable. I just wondered, you've talked about the need for employment and that where the shovel-ready projects are, because we've put a lot of projects in for that, which actually wouldn't cost the ratepayer. It'd be picked up by the taxpayer. And I thought, as a member of sort of the government, where that's at.
I'll make a few comments there. Firstly, I'm presenting as the MP for Christchurch Central, not as a government, not as a minister of government. So I speak passionately as a Christchurch-centric MP. In terms of your suggestion that we never spend it, so let's defer it, that's an utter illusion. The fact is there's a carryover every year. And we pick it up. But if we cut our capital program, now, it's a cut forever, and it will never be picked up. Yeah. And in respect of your third point, unfortunately, I don't hold the pen on applications to Treasury. But I will say this: I'm flabbergasted that council proposes to cut its own capital program and then stick its hand out to government to give it more funds to make up the shortfall. If we're going to do this, let's do it together. Let's not this organisation stop spending while it expects to get the largesse of government and more spending. Now, I'm not saying that this city won't and shouldn't. I hope and I am advocating for those capital programs. There's some fantastic projects in there and much needed spending, but let's do it together. Let's not swim in opposite directions.
Okay, so we don't know when that's coming. That's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, and certainly bearing in mind that what we're talking about here are deferrals rather than cuts, and a lot of what you're suggesting certainly will come into play for discussion as part of the LTP development, and obviously you're putting a particular view on the table today around the annual plan as well. Next question from Sarah.
Thank you. You've been very clear on the capital spend. I'm just wondering if you had a view on the operational spend, being that has implications for procurement and other areas.
Yeah, look, I do have a view, but I'll be perfectly honest. I focused on capital spend largely because of the time that was available to me to look at. I am concerned that operational spending has a similar impact. If we reduce operational spending, it has, whilst it doesn't give us infrastructure, it does still have jobs implications. But I don't really want to. I haven't honestly had enough time to look at that in detail.
Thank you, Leanne. And then if we've got time, I've got Mike and Tim. Leanne.
I just think, have you worked through the reality that a city council can only gather its income from the capital value of people's properties? Central government has the advantage of being able to spread it across its expenditure across its income, which are always based on ability to pay, either your income or your consumer tax, your GST. So it's a completely different environment for local government. And do you see that perhaps in that context there's a better role for a partnership approach around a co-spend? I wouldn't get too excited about carry forwards, because all carry forwards is moving the year in which the expenditure is earned. If we cannot physically do more than $400 million worth of capital programs, there is no point putting more money on the budget.
Yeah, look, I understand how rates work and I understand how taxes work. Yeah, absolutely understand that the city's capital program is based on a value-based levy on properties, and there certainly there's a philosophical discussion to be had around that. But I don't
tax
accept
on top of that.
And I don't accept your suggestion that carry forwards are meaningless. They're not. We've got a carry forward this year from last year. It's part of the wider spend. And so we need to be absolutely committing funds now, and we know about the kind of pipeline effect as well. We need those jobs in the pipeline so that we have certainty and continuity, and not cutting $160 million of the capital program.
It's a question of delivery, but yeah.
All right, thank you. Now that, Duncan, brings us to the end of the time available. I will do what I was doing on Friday and try and apportion questions as fairly as possible among councillors, realising that we are time constrained. So I'm keeping notes of who's asked
Kia ora,
lots of
thank
questions.
you, councillors. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Duncan, thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning. Thank you. Okay.